What is up, math superstars? In this edition of Mr. Peterson Presents, I'm going to bring to you Objective 7.11, which is histograms. In this edition, you as a student will be given data in a practical situation to be able to construct and analyze histograms and compare and contrast histograms from other types of graphs. So you might be asking yourself, what in the world is a histogram? A histogram is a special type of bar graph. It differs from a regular bar graph in 4 ways. It has no legend, and so the bars will tell us some specific information. The bars actually will tell us the frequency of when an interval happens. So the vertical axis has a special title that never changes, which is called frequency. The horizontal axis only contains numeric values and never names of groups. And each bar is representing intervals instead of individual numbers. So it will tell us the number between 30 and 34 that the data shows. And so we'll show an example here of a histogram, not a bar graph. So in our histogram, this histogram shows us some different things here. So it shows us, so on the left-hand side is our frequency. So this is our frequency. And down here, this is the height in centimeters of 30 people. And so 30 people were measured. And so we're given this frequency here. So we're given our first range is 139.5 to 149.5 centimeters. So this tells us that 6 people fall within that range. So between 149.5 to 159.5, there are 9 people that are within that range. From 159.5 to 169.5, there are 7 people that are somewhere in between those heights in centimeters, and so on and so forth. So now there's 5 people within this range. There are between 179.5 and 185.9. There are 2 people, and our really tall people, 189.5 to 199.5 centimeters. There's only 1 lone person between that range. So that's all simply a histogram is. It's a different way to express the data record. Now we're going to talk about the steps in making a histogram. And so we're going to go ahead and we need to figure out the interval and the frequency of the data that we are given. And so the directions say use these intervals here. So let's go ahead and fill those intervals into our table. 30 to 34, 35 to 39, 40 to 44, and 45 to 49. So now we need to make tally marks to determine the frequency of our data set between these specific intervals here. So our first data here, 31. So we're going to cross that out. We're going to put a tally mark. So that happens between 30 and 34. So we just keep doing that. So 35 goes between 35 and 39. 47 falls in the bottom category. 39, 41, between 40 and 44, 44, 43. So we're just going ahead and making our tally marks here for our data. So this is the best way to do it, to keep track, to make sure that we account for every single number that is in our data set here. I know this is thrilling to watch. Oh no, is he going to finish? He is, yes he is. So right now we created a table that had our intervals listed, and now the frequencies. So we know that between the interval 30 to 34, the data occurs 3 times. Between 35 and 39, it occurs 6 times. Between 40 and 44, it occurs 5 times. And between 45 to 49, it occurs 3 times. Record. So now that we have our interval and frequency table created, now we need to go ahead and now draw out our ball graph. So we're going to make our vertical and our horizontal axis here. So there's our vertical axis. There's our horizontal axis. We're going to go ahead and label our vertical axis. This is a frequency that the data happens. So the bottom is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now we're going to start with our first frequency here, which is 30 to 34. So let's go ahead and write 30 to 34 at the bottom. This occurs 3 times. So we're going to go up to 3. And we're going to draw out our bar for that. So we can see that between the interval 30 to 34, that bar is telling us that interval happens 3 times. So now let's go ahead and do our second interval, which is 35 to 39. So let's go ahead and label that at the bottom. And that happens 6 times. So we're going to start at the edge of the bar that we just drew. We're going to go up to 6 and now draw out our bar here. So this bar now tells us this interval, 35 to 39, occurs 6 times. So now let's do our third interval, which is 40 to 44. 40 to 44, this occurs 5 times. So we're going to make sure the bars touch. We're right here at 5. Let's go and draw our bar out. I like to color in just with lines. You can color it any color that you like or any pattern that you like. I know some of you are really creative with those. And now we're going to do our fourth interval, which is 45 to 49. And this occurs 3 times. And so we're going to make sure our bars are touching here. We're at our number 3 for our frequency. So now we're going to go ahead and do a design pattern, color it in. So what we did is we now created a histogram using the data that we were given. We have our frequencies frequencies are on the vertical axis. Our intervals are on the horizontal axis, and each bar tells us how many times that the data occurs between our intervals here. So this is just a different way that we can present our data using histograms.